More than 400,000 refugees in Kenya are facing imminent food shortages unless new funds are swiftly received. This is according to a United Nations World Food Programme, which is appealing for around $57 million in order to be able to continue providing food. The agency says that the worst affected settlements are those of Dadaab and Kakuma camps in Kalobeyei. The UN Refugee Agency says that after Ethiopia, Kenya is now regarded as the second biggest refugee-hosting country in Africa. To get a sense of how serious the situation is in Kenya, we're now joined via Zoom by World Food Programme Director in Kenya, Landis. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you for having me.
More than 400,000, I think 435,000 people at risk. That's a large number and therefore a huge problem.
It sure is. We've had this 435,000 refugees on 60% rations for several months now. That means if you were a refugee, you would only be getting 60% of what is perceived as a normal ration for an adult or a child.
So has this been a problem that's been growing for some time?
Yes, it has, for several months. We've had trouble getting full funding for over a year now, which has meant that we've had to reduce the rations. But this can have impact on the nutrition, particularly of young children who are the most vulnerable, but also pregnant and lactating women. And after several months, of course, without adequate rations, this can lead to other social problems, such as unrest.
And these refugees are really dependent on the WFP for all of their food needs.
Yes, in these camps, as refugees, the World Food Programme is really the only source of food for these refugees. So when we have to cut the rations, there is a real impact on the livelihoods and the health and well-being of these refugees. So we're really, at this holiday time, really trying to get the world to remember that it's been a tough year for all of us this year, but it's been particularly a tough year for the most vulnerable, not of least of which are the refugees in Kenya.
Where are these refugees coming?
Although our donors are tremendous, sorry.
Carry on.
Go ahead.
No.
Although our donors are tremendously generous and have provided us with lots of assistance over the year, it's very difficult at this time to bring the refugees into this even more vulnerable situation. We predict that if we don't receive further donations, one of the camps, Kalobeyei, that receives primarily or only cash assistance will go down to zero in January. And the rest of the refugees in both Kalobeyei and Dadaab will go down to 30% of a ration. So we're really appealing to the world to think of these refugees at this time and to help us provide them adequate nutrition.
So I mean, we're talking about an imminent hunger crisis.
We're really talking, yes, in these camps of really not having enough food to make it through each day. And that's a really critical situation. And the impact, particularly on the children, could be tremendously severe.
Where are these refugees coming from? And do we have any idea how long they've been in these camps?
The refugees come from Somalia and from Sudan, as well as other countries, depending on which camp we're talking about. Many of the refugees have been there for many, many years. Some children are born in these refugee camps and spend most of their lives in these camps. And it's tremendously difficult because as the situation around the world with other emergencies evolves, it's difficult for donors who are also focused on the COVID situation and the needs in their own countries to continue to provide assistance to these refugees.
And this is quite a, I don't want to use the word burden, but it is something that Kenya has to bear, and they hold quite a lot of the responsibility for more than their fair share, some would say, of refugees.
Kenya has been tremendous over the years to receive, house, and care for these refugees. They really deserve a lot of credit for how they've opened their hearts and really focused on taking care of even host communities, helping these refugees to survive. This is very clear, and Kenya deserves a lot of credit. And now we're really asking the international donors to also continue to step up to the plate to make sure that these refugee children can survive and thrive.
We know that Kenya is also facing an issue of food security because of locusts that have descended on that part of the world. A lot of the food aid that you get, I'm sure you saw some of it locally, or is this coming from further afield?
No, a lot of the food aid that we provide is sourced locally, but also particularly within the region. And so you can imagine if locusts are having a negative impact on the food security of smallholder farmers, but also of large-scale farmers, it does impact our ability to buy within and procure food for refugees within the region. So it's a double whammy. The locust invasion is really a multiplier effect because it's hitting the food security in some of the most remote areas of Kenya and other countries within the region, Ethiopia and Somalia. And it's hitting populations that are already impacted by drought, have been impacted by flood, as well as COVID. So it's really a double whammy for a very, very food insecure population within the region.
I'm very concerned about the children because a lack of nutrition has such an implication on growth, learning, development, so many issues.
Yes, it truly does. And not only does it have an impact both on the development of children and their ability to not only lead healthy lives, but to do well in school and have productive lives and jobs, but it also impacts them and can have health impacts throughout their lives, right? So even into adulthood. So it's really important to take care of the nutrition of children and not allow them to become malnourished.
Lauren Landis, we're going to have to leave it there, but we certainly wish you the best in getting this badly needed funding. Let's hope that somebody is listening and will respond. And we wish you well because it is a pretty desperate mission. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that's the World Food Programme Director in Kenya, Lauren Landis, joining us from Nairobi, telling us about the dire situation in two major refugee camps. The WFP needs $57 million urgently, otherwise by as early as January, there could be no food for some refugees. And we're talking about 435,000 people that are vulnerable at this time.